Hi, and welcome back to Hope Follows. I'm Julie Kensler, the host of the show and friend along the journey of life with you. On our show, we share stories of people overcoming really hard life situations. And even when they didn't overcome it and they didn't see themselves through it, they share what carried them in those dark, difficult times. Our show is aired the second and fourth Mondays of every month. You can go on over to hopefollows.com to see previous episodes. We have over 100 episodes, maybe even 110 now, I'm not sure. But there is a story for you to relate to, for you to be encouraged. And today, this is a very, it's a very difficult to describe episode. What I can tell you is that this show, Hope Follows, the whole movement, the book, all of it started out of a very difficult, dark time for our family, losing my beautiful sister Tammy to a drunk driver. And it was Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MADD. That's the shirt I have on. They are the group that were very pivotal in helping with my healing journey. And so today I bring a very special person onto Hope Follows, and her name is Claire Bigler. And Claire, thank you for being here.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me.
And we talked about how this isn't the type of topic and show that we're excited about. The topic is what doesn't give us that the motivation, the inspiration, but it's what you're going to share about MADD that has grown out of this desperate need for support and all that they do. So if you could first share your position that you had formerly with MADD and maybe the foundation for how MADD got started and what it offers to people.
Yeah, absolutely. So MADD, as you've mentioned, stands for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and their mission is to end both drunk and drugged driving, as well as prevent underage drinking and provide support to the victims and survivors of these violent crimes. They originally started back in 1980 when a mother lost her daughter to an impaired driver. She started reaching out to people around the country and realized that change needed to be made and voices needed to be heard. And so the way they provide that support, I like to split MADD's work into two categories of prevention and support. So the prevention efforts look more like going to schools and talking to kids, adults, about impaired driving, about alcohol use, about all of those topics and conversations, about peer pressure. We also go and speak to offenders about impaired driving, what we're drinking, what decisions we're making, and making sure that going forward, the decisions do not include getting behind the wheel while impaired. We also support police officers in any way we can. And the other part of our work, which was my work for 2 years, was support. As a victim services specialist, my role was to provide any kind of support people needed as they went through being impacted by an impaired driver, whether they lost a loved one, whether they had a serious injury, whether they just had property damage or any kind of impact that was made to them. So we provided that direct support and just were there for them wherever we could be.
Yeah, that's a long time, 1980.
Very long time, yeah.
Wow. Can you share before, I think I'm going to go into statistics first.
Yeah.
Can you share about that? Because this is something that has impacted so many families. And what are we seeing as the trends, as hopeful trends?
Statistics typically bring pretty bad news at first, it feels like. We see in our nation 37 people are killed every day by an impaired driver on average, with one person getting killed every 39 minutes and one person being injured every 2 minutes. So it starts to make sense then when I tell you that 2 out of 3 people will be impacted at some point in their lives by impaired driving. And that can include knowing someone who made the choice to drive impaired, and that can include knowing someone who was in a crash or being in one yourself. But as you said, there are hopeful trends because MADD has been around to change the impact since 1980. We've been able to reduce the death rate by 40%. We've been able to service over 1 million victims and counting and save 475,000 lives and counting. So there is hope there, but still work in progress.
Definitely. I noticed you used the word crash, which was what I was, how I learned how to refer to this.
Sure.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So something I like to say at MADD a lot is we never use the word accident, only ever crash or collision, because at the end of the day, driving impaired is a choice. And so it is 100% preventable 100% of the time. And so since it is a choice, we'll never acknowledge it as a simple mistake or an accident, but acknowledge it as what it is, a crash, a choice.
Yeah, I appreciate that because in an unusual, odd way, it gave some, I don't know if it was comfort. Maybe it is comfort because you guys knew, MADD knew what we were going through, knew the torment and just the despair of this horrific crash of any kind that takes someone's life, that hurts them, causes injury because of something that was avoidable. And I know for me, it was, there was a lot of anger initially. And so I know that's part of the grief process. How can you speak to this type of crash? I want people to really understand what kind of impact this is because we're heading into 4th of July weekend. And we want people to really think about, if you're drinking, if you're taking any drugs, you better not get behind a wheel. And so how can we, what could be our message to them and in ways that they could reconsider? What are the options that we know are easy to access?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. One of the biggest things about the modern age is that, if anything, there are more options now to get home safely, right? A lot of people will just be like, well, yeah, you can take Uber, you can take Lyft, public transportation. We coined the phrase designated driver. So a designated driver, having someone who knows where you are that you can call. But something I really like to tell people is, if you've ever lived life before, if you've ever made a plan before, plans fall apart all the time, right? Things never go the way we want them to. Things happen, right? So if you're going to do anything involving any kind of impairment, whether it's alcohol, drugs, even if you're trying a new prescription drug for the first time, or if you're doing something over the counter like an allergy medication, know what you're taking, know how it affects you, and make a plan so that any kind of plan you make doesn't involve you getting behind the wheel. So say you wanted to take an Uber, but for some reason the Uber app isn't working. Okay, call a friend. Have someone you know come get you. Leave your car at the bar. Do whatever you need to do there. Same if you were going to have a designated driver. Designated drivers fall through sometimes, right? And so if that happens, okay, have the Uber app on ready at your phone. Have things in place so that the backup plan is not you getting behind the wheel. That's the biggest thing I tell people whenever I'm talking to, especially people who have made that choice in the past. Because frankly, as I said, life happens, things fall apart all the time. Make sure that you're still being safe no matter what.
Yeah. So have a plan A and a plan B. Have 2 plans.
Absolutely.
Knowing that the final word is, I will not get behind a wheel. And that's where we want people to get to. I will not operate a vehicle, motorcycle or car, any
or
vehicle.
a boat.
A boat.
Yeah, boating under the influence is a real thing that can happen and a real crime you can be arrested for. So keep that in mind as well, especially with the holiday this weekend.
Yeah. Okay, so when a family loses a loved one suddenly like this, or someone is seriously injured by an impaired driver, what in the beginning stages, in the beginning aspects, you share more about what support, but can you give an example or how you continue the support or how the organization continues?
Absolutely. The start for us is typically either they reach out to us or someone else gives us a referral or a resource of, hey, this person needs help, or they reach out, I need help. And so often we would start with just initiating the conversation, reaching out, acknowledging that something really hard has happened to them, and figuring out where they're at in the process, whether the crash just happened, whether it happened a few months ago. Some people reach out years after the fact. But some of the things we can do, it all starts with a conversation, right? And sometimes people, that's all they really need is a third person to talk to that is not part of the grieving experience, doesn't need help from them, someone they can really let loose about and just let it all out. There's some people that need more resources. Maybe they need research into financial resources, doctors, physical therapists, mental health therapists, any kind of service that we can't provide directly. I can go and help them find the people that may be a good fit. We also have support groups that we run. And as we've talked about, we have events within our community like candlelight vigils and fundraisers to bring everyone together. And one of the big ones is if anyone has an active court case, which most of these situations do end up in the court system one way or another. And so people sometimes need help through that process, whether it's going to court with them, reaching out to law enforcement or the prosecutor for updates, whether it's just explaining how the process works, filling out any application forms, or helping them be able to speak to the court in their victim impact statements. There are many things we can do, and we will do whatever people are comfortable with. And we are also able to carry on services long after court is over, so long as they want that help. And we are also able to give opportunities for them to give back and volunteer if they're interested. So there's quite a few things we can do. And like I said, it really depends on what each individual person is comfortable with. And we also make sure to check in on a regular basis to make sure everything's going okay, if they need any support. And it just really varies person to person.
That is what I appreciated so much of you and your emails and texts and just knowing, and I know I didn't always respond, but I will tell you that it means a lot because I just know that you're always there. And that's the one support piece of all of this is to know if I'm having a hard day, if I'm feeling like I need to talk to someone, I know I can go to MADD. That the candlelight vigil, that's always so meaningful and special. And the MADD walk, that is another. I remember the first year that I did it, and I look back and I think, how did I do some of these things? How did I make it through those first months and years? And there's just a multitude of support, but the MADD walks, having my family join me, walking around the zoo or a college campus or wherever it was, where it was held, there was just so much meaning there, having the posters up of our loved ones, letting people share. That is at the candlelight vigil. And I also the victim impact panel that you had shared about, and how I came one time and you were there leading it. Can you share a little bit more depth of what that looks like, just so people could see if you are convicted of this crime? I know in Arizona, there are serious consequences you go through and steps before you can move past that. Can you share about that for Arizona? I know you could talk to our state.
Sure. Yeah. So, and this is just based off of my experience and what I know about it. But if you get convicted of a DUI, it depends on what your blood alcohol content or BAC was. It depends on your speed. There's a lot of factors that go into play. But generally, there is a pretty big fine you have to pay, as well as having your driver's license suspended for a certain amount of time, as well as having what's called an ignition interlock installed in your car for typically about a year or so. And in ignition interlock, basically you have to blow into it every single time in order to start the car, right? And one of the other things is, in addition to other court fees and punishments, there's consequences like unable to obtain employment or losing your job. If you're in college or trying to get a degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, any level, they could rescind a scholarship or remove your acceptance. And I know that for what you were talking about, the victim impact panel, you're typically also required to take classes where we talk about this stuff, and we talk about impaired driving and safety and what we're putting into our bodies and when it's safe to drive again and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of detail that goes into that for sure. But there is a lot of consequences that play out when a conviction is made.
And that, of course, is on the offender and not even the family that has experienced the loss or injuries or impact. And when I was at the victim impact panel, I remember you asked me to share my story. And I can look around the room, and I remember seeing people, they just didn't care, or they wanted to be on their phone. They're not allowed to be on their phone. There's even a police officer in there making sure that they're all being respectful and following the rules. I think that's because it was at a
that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And we have security most of the time at these events as well. So.
Okay. And, but then there were, and if this is what you do it for the one person, you do it for someone who's going to make change. And a man came up to me after, do you remember that? And
I do.
And he had said, thank you so much for sharing. I think he was crying too. And he was saying, thank you for sharing your story. I'm going to get help. So this is really a person who was struggling with alcoholism. And he said, I'm going to get help. I'm going to start getting help now. And so yeah.
That was beautiful. I remember that. There was another man there, I remember this too, at this same class, who was like, can I come back and take it again? I want to remind myself why I don't want to drink. And I think we recommended AA to him, but that was really cool as well. Where he was like, I want to remember this. I want to remember in case if I ever get tempted to drink again, I want to remember this.
Yeah. And, that's why MADD has a lot of promotional marketing or on social media, and they have so many posts they do and to make awareness of this. And so what are some of their big national campaigns as they come into big holidays like this, like big party holidays and celebratory holidays?
Yeah, I think the key is awareness, right? A lot of what we talk about around holidays and stuff like that is kind of specified towards that holiday. I know we put a lot of stuff out especially for, in this case, 4th of July, being like, hey, we're not here to tell you how to live your life. Like, if you choose to have alcohol involved in your celebration, by all means, we're not here to tell you not to. Just make sure everybody's safe. Make sure there's a plan in place. It's consistent reminders like that, where it's like, it doesn't just apply this one time you go to the bar, or it doesn't just apply at this one holiday. It applies every single time. And it's a conscious choice we have to make every single time in order for impaired driving to come to an end. That is really important. And so a lot of their focus is on that decision.
Yeah. And as far as the government, how well do they work with MADD? I mean, from what I've seen, they've been a city and statewide, they've been super supportive and work alongside MADD. at different events or different campaigns. And even our highway digital signs during holidays, and we see there's always something up there about don't drink and drive, always some clever slogan or statement. So what do you see as far as the government and how well they support and want to also see an end to this?
Yeah, I think a lot of the way we see it is in our police officers themselves. We host a law enforcement recognition banquet every year and we send out nomination invites to different police stations and remind them, hey, we see the work you're doing and we're grateful for that, and we want to recognize you. We invite various representatives to come to our walks, to come to the law enforcement banquet, to speak at the banquet. We work alongside the attorney's offices whenever we have cases come through. We've had pretty positive workings with them, and our national office works with government as well in more of the legislative efforts like the HALT Act and a few others as well. I know there's some states trying to lower the blood alcohol content legal limit to 0.05. There's a lot of efforts being made and a lot of collaborations being done, which it's been very cool to see that. I got to go to DC myself for our big 45th anniversary celebration, and getting to see that collaboration myself firsthand was really cool. And getting to see victims, survivors, staff all come together in one place to celebrate MADD and also drive our mission forward at the same time, and honoring those we've lost over the years has been and was very impactful.
Yeah, I appreciate all that you did, and I continue to appreciate and support MADD. So for my personal experience initially with MADD was, I don't even know how this all even happened. You know, we're in shock and not really aware of what's all going on, trying to have the people around us to help us make decisions. And I remember talking to MADD, a representative here in Arizona, but I was going back to the court case almost a year later after we lost Tammy. And somehow they connected, the Arizona specialist, victim advocate, connected me to the advocate in Indiana. And I believe this woman drove an hour and a half to come and sit with me in the courtroom. And Claire, I know I've shared this story with you, and how she held my hand and just sat there with me. It was so comforting. And you can't even describe the anguish that you're feeling in a court situation like this. It's just like, it comes back to me and I feel it all again. And I am just grateful that she was right there with me. And just that small act helped me to endure something so unthinkable as having to hear all of this, the attorneys and all of that.
And this happens every single time that there's a court case, that you can see and feel when the burden of it is finally gone. Whether it's accepting a plea deal, whether it comes at the sentencing hearing, whether there's a verdict, there's always a moment for them that burden gets lifted.
Now with our situation, we had a horrible outcome with the court case that he was found not guilty. And that was so unsettling and so difficult. And the measure of some burden lifted would have been so different for us if there was a different outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can, like, sometimes that burden lifted even comes after the fact, down the line, because there is a new grief when it doesn't go the way you want it to. Or even if there is a guilty verdict, but the sentencing is not as high as somebody wanted, that can be grief too. There's all kinds of versions of that. And I'm sorry to hear that was your experience. That's heartbreaking.
Thank you. Do you ever see defendants, criminals? What term do you use?
I often use defendants, but mainly because I'm used to going through the process. And so we try to use defendants or alleged offenders because most of the time they don't have a charge yet or like a verdict yet. But after the fact, I use offenders.
Okay. And so how do you, have you ever seen where they've been remorseful?
Yes, actually, I have. And there's some where you can tell that they're being remorseful because the judge is sitting right there. And so they're like, I'm more sorry about it than I would have been because you're about to punish me for it and I'm caught, you know? But there have been a few cases where you could tell that they were devastated, just completely gut wrenched, and just would listen to the family speak and just be they would just be weeping completely. And then it would get to their turn and they'd be like, I have no idea what to say other than I'm so sorry. And I know that what I've done can't bring this person back for you, or I can't undo it. And so there have been some people that have been remorseful. And if anything, those cases are even more heartbreaking to watch, because then everybody's just completely gutted and devastated, and they've got a family behind them too, and just like everybody suffers from that night, from that choice. And that can be, it's hard to see. It's hard to see any kind of devastation on any level.
That's why we have organizations like MADD to talk about prevention and support. And that's how I can get behind such an organization, because it personally touched me, and I see the impact it has. Now, because we're a show about hope follows, how would you address, what are some closing words that maybe are on your heart that you want to say to people who are going through this type of loss, because it's a loss, whether it's an injury or losing a loved one, there's still a loss. So what would you want to say, Claire?
I would say this. If you're in the middle of that season right now, it's okay. Whatever you're feeling about it, if you're sad, angry, numb, it's okay to feel it, because it hurts and it's allowed to hurt. And it may feel completely out of your control right now. And that's okay too. Find people in your life who will support you and uplift you. Whether getting help means a family member, a friend, a therapist, find people that care. And know that there is another side to this. You're gonna get through it. You're not gonna move on, because life is different now, but you're gonna get through it. And it's gonna be eventually maybe a little bit better and maybe a little bit okay. And if that takes a really long time to get there, that's okay. But there is a new version of life waiting for you at the other end, or maybe you'll be able to start doing the things you were doing again. Maybe you'll start doing something new. Maybe it inspires you in some way. And that's great, whatever that does for you. It's temporary. You're going to get through it. You just got to take it one tiny step at a time. And sometimes if you fall backwards, that happens too. But you're further along than you were yesterday. I can tell you that much.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know we could say so much more about all this, and I thank you for being here and helping to put words into this that I can't.
So you got to be real careful about what you're putting in your body. Even if you feel fine up here, in reality, you're still too impaired. It's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, that was so well said right there. That is perfect. And so thank you again, Claire, for being on Hope Follows and sharing your wisdom, your experience, so we can give hope to other people.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yes, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. We are so grateful that Hope Follows is a place where we can uh, sit and be encouraged, be inspired. Maybe even if it is just like an episode as this, to give us some more information and ideas and how to prevent, how to get support. That's what we're here for. And I do want to just close with, I want to close in a prayer, and I want to close in sharing something else special. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to have Claire on Hope Follows to share so much wisdom. Just if just it can touch one person and another one and another one, and let people know what it is to be impaired, to know how this impacts people's lives, and to know how to support those who are affected. God, I just pray for you to guide and lead this organization, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And I pray that people will think twice. They'll have extra plans so they will never get behind a wheel of a vehicle when they're under the influence. God, I thank you for how you have been alongside me and my family through our devastating loss. Thank you, God, because I know you can be there for that person who's watching right now and listening, who is experiencing some devastating loss and something similar. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name, amen. And so, friend, the special thing I want to share with you is that in your heart, that I know that I always will have my sister, and I have determined to do things that can make a difference, whatever that looks like. And so I am grateful for my sister Tammy to have been such a blessing in my life, such a joy. I learned so much from her, and this, sometimes when I talk about this, honestly, it feels like it's an out of body experience. It feels like, who is this talking? How can I be doing this? But I will tell you that the strength of God has been my anchor, has been my everything, every step of the way. So I encourage you, friend, to reach out. If you have that strong faith, wonderful. Keep holding on to God. But if you don't, just call on him. Call on him, because he's there to love on you and support you and be part of every turn in this journey of grief that you may be experiencing. Thank you again for joining us on Hope Follows, and may you be blessed. Bye.